Hello, 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 everybody. So good to see you all. I missed everybody. Pop culture curator here. And for those of you watching this live, I'm sure you realize it's Wednesday evening. So it's time for another review of two episodes of the fantastic original Gilligan's Island. And if you're watching this on the rerun, I hope you enjoy this. I have other streams on my channel. Check them out. I have a lot of content. I'm still building more in my library, but I think you'll find something you'll be interested in. If you like what you see, please consider hitting the subscribe button and the like button. I don't know if it really helps a lot, but if you can hit the subscribe and the notification bell when I have further streams, you're always invited. You're always invited in the chat or on the panel. And first of all, I want to welcome my fantastic, wonderful co-host, Gorilla's Random Thoughts. How are you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. Had a long ass damn show, but I'm here now.
No, he's talking to everybody. He's talking about Stranger Things. He does the Stranger Things review or watch party right before this stream here, and I guess it was longer than you were expecting, Gorilla.
Yeah, way longer. Or else I would set it for a lot earlier.
Well, you didn't know. You never find out until
Yeah,
you find out, I guess.
I should have done the research.
Well, I hope it was worth it. Hopefully, it was good and not a disappointment.
Oh, I didn't fall asleep. So.
Oh, that's a plus, I guess, huh? And I want to say hello to the people slowly coming into the chat. Yeah. So the people in the chat, we got Chris Longfellow here. So good to see you, Chris. Chris says hi, all. And it looks like Stream Elements is working. Well, let's see if it does. I'll put it to the test tonight. Hello, Bill. So good to see you. Bill says evening. I like your Bullwinkle avatar there, Bill. I'm a big fan of the old Bullwinkle and Rocky. So tonight we're going to cover two episodes of Gilligan's Island. And let me close this and get us all ready.
And hello, mad scientist.
Hail, hail, mad scientist. Let me show that on the screen. Hello, good to see you, mad scientist. I'm glad you can join us. I'm sorry if this is running a little late, guys. So we're going to try to rush through this as quick as we can. I know everybody has busy schedules and a lot of us have to work tomorrow. So we will do our best to get to the end before you least expect it. All right. And now, I totally lost track of what I was doing here. Oh, okay. There we go. Sorry. Apologize for the delay, everybody. Okay. What is this thing doing here? I got a delay. Okay, so the first episode we're going to cover, by the way, the two episodes we are reviewing tonight are the last two episodes of season 1 of Gilligan's Island from 1965. After we complete these two episodes, we're going to be covering, starting next week, we'll be covering season 2, where for the first time, the Professor and Marianne will actually be included in the ending song. So we're going to have a different song by a different group, slightly updated to include the Professor and Marianne, as well as it'll be in bright color. So
finally, no longer travesty fixed.
Finally, a travesty fixed, right? Finally, the Professor and Marianne get the credit they deserve at long last.
Yeah, finally, I'll be able to stop giving every episode an F until they fixed it.
Yeah, you're right about that. Okay, the first episode we're covering is My Fair Gilligan. It premiered June 5th, 1965. So I was a month and 4 days old when that premiered. I'm definitely... All right, let me get the screen ready to share. Hopefully I can do this without screwing it up too badly tonight. Oh, I have two of these open. All right, let's see if this works.
And welcome, Pickles, there.
Welcome. Hey, Pickles. Good to see you, LDG. LDG saved the day once again the other day when he helped PvP get his YouTube set up and connected with streaming. LDG, I owe you, and I'll never forget, and I'll always be in complete gratitude for what you've done for us. Bill says, I owe my warped sense of humor to Rocky and Bullwinkle. Well, excellent. So I take it you also attended What's the Matter You like I did? All right. And by the way, I'm going to read a little bit. I got the episode all queued up, my Fair Gilligan, but I'm going to make this really quick. The last few weeks, I've been covering how each of the cast members were hired and how the producer, Sherwood Schwartz, selected them and for their qualities. And last week, I read about Ginger. Tonight, I'm going to try to keep this short because I know, like I said, we're running late. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read really quick here how the professor and Marianne were chosen. Or Marianne and Professor, I think it's in that order, actually. So it's basically where we left off last week. As Tina's Ginger became wide-eyed and innocent, Marianne stopped being wide-eyed and innocent and became more realistic and down to earth. She was still virginal, but not from innocence, from determination. Dawn Wells was an ideal choice for the new Marianne, particularly after Tina Louise was cast as Ginger. Her energetic, pretty, girl-next-door look made a wonderful contrast with the tall, glamorous, sexy Tina Louise. By the way, if you think pretty girl-next-door types are out of fashion, guess who always got the most fan mail in the cast of Gilligan's Island? You guessed it, Dawn Wells. Yeah, all the guys wanted Dawn Wells. How about the role of the professor? Was his character important, vital, essential? Much more than that. Inestimable. The professor was the glue that held the more colorful characters in place on Gilligan's Island. And Russell Johnson played him perfectly. Intellectual, serious, sincere. He supplied the logic on the island, and he supplied it so well that he convinced the other castaways and the viewers as well that whatever he said was scientifically sound. And more often than that, what he said and did actually had a scientific basis. Can you hear me okay, Gorilla?
Yeah.
All right. Thanks to my years in pre-med, plus the research the writers did, all of the professor's experiments seemed absolutely legitimate. Russ Johnson knew that, believed that, and instilled that believability in the show. No matter how weird or bizarre the professor's scheme might seem, Russ made it sound perfectly plausible. For instance, in one episode, the professor, basing his calculations on the wind currents, decided the castaways could escape the island in a balloon. He sealed off the ends of the sleeves of their raincoats and filled them with hot air, making a weird-looking but practical balloon. You remember that episode, Gorilla?
The balloon one, yeah.
Yeah, with the hot air, remember? And they were all deciding who was going to go up in it?
Yeah.
And Sherwood Schwartz continues. Was it far-fetched, bizarre, unbelievable? That's what a critic wrote in one of the trade papers. That's what the critic said about that particular episode back in 1965. Nevertheless, in September 1983, a family of 4 in Czechoslovakia made a balloon by sealing the ends of the sleeves of 6 raincoats and filling them with hot air. Thanks to wind currents, they escaped Russian persecution by sailing across the border to a safe democracy. They even used the same number of raincoats we used. Maybe they watched Gilligan's Island in Czechoslovakia. If they do, the professor must convince them it would work, even if he couldn't convince some of Gilligan's Island's critics. Okay. So now we're going to get. Did you know you want to add before we get started with the first episode? So there you have it. We were talking about that when we watched the episode about that hot air balloon, if it would work or not. It saved a family of 4 people. The exact same thing with the same number of raincoats actually saved a family of 4 in Czechoslovakia. So I think that is fantastic.
Yeah. That's with the Soviet Union. Yeah, I heard about that story. They're trying of the different ways they're trying to escape Soviet Russia.
And one of the kids probably said Gilligan's Island, because Gilligan's Island is seriously translated in many, many languages. It was translated in several languages all over the world. So I'm sure they had to see it.
No, I don't think it was probably played in Soviet Russia there because they blockaded all American media and influence there. I'm pretty sure that because I think if I remember right, the one guy was engineer or physics guy.
I'm sure that helped, right?
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't Gilligan's Island because the Soviet Union blockaded all American media.
That is likely because we were going through a Cold War at the time.
Yeah.
I know now they show American-made stuff in Russia, but back then we were going through a Cold War, so it's probably not likely.
Yeah.
And hello, Lemon Pie. So good to see you. I'm glad you could join us, Lemon Pie. And hey, good old Captain Finity. Captain Finity says greetings. Captain Finity says on our side of the Berlin Wall, Gilligan Island was a great icon of Western democracy and freedom. Seriously, yeah, I read about all the different countries. In fact, two stories. Dawn Wells, who plays Marianne, she went to an island, a far off island where the natives couldn't even speak English to visit. She was on a trip. And she went to this island. She met these natives, and they didn't understand a word of English, but they looked right at her and said, Marianne? Marianne? And then Alan Hale played the skipper. One time he was in Turkey. He was visiting the country of Turkey, and he was getting off the plane, and they stopped him because he was wearing his skipper hat. Turkey didn't like Americans. So when they saw him getting off the plane, they said, Skipper, Skipper. And they told him to take off the hat. So, yes, they're recognized worldwide. So I think that's very cool. Mad Scientist says, Pop, how's the snow woman? Yeah, good question, Gorilla. Where's our sexy pictures?
I haven't had a chance yet.
Well, you said tomorrow's only going to be 50-mile-an-hour winds. That sounds like a good chance. What do you think?
Yeah, but that's the light, fluffy snow, not the melted stuff that we've been getting lately. It's been melted pretty fast.
What a letdown. How are you supposed to make sexy snow women with all this interference? And Captain Vanity says, it was redubbed as Comrade Gilinski's Socialist Paradise Island. I would not be surprised, Captain. All right, now let's hope I have the right window selected. And it looks like I don't because I don't see it. So let me share the other one. I don't know why I have two to choose from. I should only have one to choose from when you think about it. Okay, now let's try this one. All you see is black. Is that right, Gorilla?
Right.
All right. Why is this acting funny? Bear with me, everybody. I apologize for the delay. Ah, there you are. There it is. It was trying to select my graphic GIMP, my graphic design program. So now that I figured that out, okay, here we go. Starting with our opening credits and our faithful, wonderful, heroic crew on the way to a 3-hour tour. An introduction to our wonderful, fantastic, and classic cast. Yeah, I can't wait till next time when it actually has the Professor and Marianne included. So here we have our opening with Gilligan by the Lagoon, catching butterflies.
All right.
Stay there, my little beauty, and I'll get you. So he sees a butterfly on the rock.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, he's not fast enough.
No, I was questioning that net at first, because most fishing nets have a lot bigger holes and all that. But then he said, "Oh, I made it himself." So they must have had a minnow net on the minnow.
That's possible too. And also, wouldn't you use it for if you want to catch bait, like maybe for smaller fish?
Yeah.
So maybe you have more than one size.
Yeah, I didn't click it. It took me a second for it to click. And Captain Finity says, strangely enough, She-Hulk was taken unedited by the CCCP
Girl.
And
great. Yeah, I just heard that she's going to be one of the main characters in the Avengers movie. That movie sounds like a shitstorm coming.
And Edge of Time says, bring out the GIMP.
Bring out the GIMP. Good to see you, Edge of Time. Yeah, GIMP's a really good graphic editing program for the PC. It's totally free, and it's almost as good as Photoshop. Bill says Navy Seaman's bell bottoms were designed to serve as a flotation device. A balloon from raincoats ain't such a stretch. The bell bottoms were a flotation device. That's interesting. I hadn't heard of that. I know they do wear bell bottoms in the Navy. So here we are. Gilligan did not get the butterfly, so he climbed over to the other side of the hill.
Which I will just walk around, but I'm lazy like that.
Depending how far the distance is, too. And this is the first time we've ever seen the other side of the ridge of the lagoon. So this is what Gilligan sees from his point of view. So he sees branches from these trees and what looks like a butterfly. And of course, he gets excited and he swings for the butterfly. And unfortunately, it's Mrs. Howell's hat. Get it off me. I don't like this. Take it off. I think she might be a little claustrophobic.
I don't know about you, but I laughed so hard at that, especially when she started scolding Gilligan.
It was funny, yes. And he says, "I'm sorry. I'm just trying out my new butterfly net." And here's Mr. Howell posing for that picture that she was going to take. "Do hurry, lovey. My arm is getting stiff," he says. And I was thinking, how they plan on developing this film, huh? Maybe the professor has ways of doing that too.
Yeah, maybe. Lilith Pie says, "Captain, the Politburo loves their WAP." The captain says, "This is turning into Lost in Space."
Yes, it is. It's going to be soon in a few days.
And they must be in hog heaven by now.
Swines, all of them. Okay, what you doing here? It says. And now she's explaining, "Don't be silly with a camera." And she takes a picture. "Oh, Mrs. Howell," he looks up. There's a great big rock. And he tries to explain to her, but there's no time, and he pushes her all the way just as the rock hits the ground. And Mr. Howell notices and comes running and says, "Lovely, lovely, my dear, are you all right?" "Oh, there, my dear," as they help her up. Yes, I'm all right, thanks to Gilligan," she says. "We are forever in your debt." "Oh, it wasn't anything, of course," he said. "Not anything, you just saved my life, that's all," she says. "You couldn't be braver if you were our own son." And of course, she immediately says, "Wouldn't it be wonderful if we had a son like Gilligan, who risked his life to save mine the way he did?" And of course, he says, being humble, "That's okay, Mr. Howell. I do it for my own mother." "Oh, Thurston, we haven't got a son," she says. "True. We have no one to bear our name proudly and bravely," he says. "True. Oops, same line. You think we should? Could we?" she says. And he said, "Don't call, not Mr. Howell." Sorry, we missed a kind of couple lines there. But Gilligan calls him Mr. Howell. He says, "Not Mr. Howell, Dad." "Gilligan Thurston Howell IV, we adopt you officially." I kiss your mother," he says. And of course, Gilligan wasn't quite expecting that, but he gives her a little peck on the cheek. And she's thrilled. And now we have Mr. Howell making a proclamation. "Hear ye, hear ye. I do formally declare from this day forth that poor indigent fellow known as Gilligan shall become Gilligan Thurston Howell IV, my legal son and heir." And of course, "What's the matter, Ginger?" Ginger's crying, and Mary Ann asks her. And she says, "Oh, I always cry at weddings and being adopted by millionaires." I wish I could be adopted by millionaires, but I guess I'm a little too old. I'd have to find some really, really old ones. "Captain, the naval person, the Admiralty represented." So Mr. Howell is getting signatures from each person as witnesses. "Oh, and there's Professor, the academic world, and the professor signs, cloistered halls and all that." And Mrs. Howell's overjoyed. "Oh, darling, at last we have a son. Oh." And by the way, after we're done watching the 3 seasons of Gilligan's Island, we will be covering the 3 TV movies: Rescue from Gilligan's Island, Return to Gilligan's Island, and Harlem Globetrotters on Gilligan's Island. And the reason why I bring that up is Harlem Globetrotters, the very last movie, sort of breaks canon, because in that movie they suddenly have an adult son who is Thurston Howell IV, played by a different actor.
Okay. And Captain Spazzy says, no, lost by J.J. Abrams with the smoke monster on the island monster box.
Yeah, I'm so glad I didn't watch that garbage show. I was so happy. When I heard how many people were disappointed, I'm just thinking of the big chunk of my life that I spared. The same with Ring of Thrones or whatever the other one is. It's like, no, all that stuff, they all
Game
went
of
off the
Thrones.
deep end. Thanks.
Oh,
Well, there's Rings of something. I don't know.
Rings
Chris
of Power.
Longfellow, Rings of Power. That's it. I get the names mixed up. Thank you. Yes, my dear, can you imagine, Mr. Howell says, after all these years, walking into the Harvard Club and saying, fellows, I want you to meet my son, Gilligan Thurston Howell IV. And the skipper says, Gilligan Thurston Howell IV. Isn't that one? Of course, it doesn't get all the letters or all the text because we're having to skip through this. And now they're listening to the talking. And Mr. Howell says, I was just imagining walking to the Harvard Club after all these years with him and saying, fellows, I want you to meet my son, Gilligan Thurston Howell IV. And then he realizes that sounds terrible. That's why he has the look on his face. And now we cut back to Gilligan and Skipper's hut, and it looks like Gilligan's packing up. Rest of your stuff, Gilligan. Well, off to your new home. Thanks, Professor. Skipper, you're all right. So he's got his duffel bags all packed. And of course, Skipper's being like a worrisome mother. Don't eat any pineapple because it always gives you a rash. I won't forget, Skipper. Oh, wait, and Gilligan, call me if you need anything. Okay, Skipper. I mean, any time of the day or night or, well, you know. Okay, Skipper, see you later. And Skipper says, good luck. Oh, I'm sure going to miss him around here, says the Skipper. I used to take care of him, you know. I took care of everything that he was, though. His clothes, and he forgot his handkerchief. The professor realizes, I better get him over. And the professor reminded him he's just going to the other hut. He doesn't need them. And Skipper says he's going to need them to wipe his eyes, Professor, when he starts crying, the poor homesick kid, because I'm crying right now. And I'll break every bone of his body if he doesn't. Losing your first mature, you gain a benefactor, says the professor. Gilligan can afford to buy you a whole fleet of ships now.
Hey, Captain Fitty says meringue.
Meringue. Like
Meringue.
lemon meringue pie.
Yeah. Lemon Pie says hi, Chris. And well,
Hello,
hey there,
lemon pie.
Chris. Welcome. Cat Lemon Captain. Hi there. Seasons lost 3 Game of Thrones. Throne 7 Discovery 0.3 Picard 0. Happy with
scores.
those numbers.
That's right. And I didn't watch any of those. So, yeah, definitely reason to celebrate.
I'm thinking that's going to be my next lottery numbers.
You never know the way your luck's been going.
Yeah.
So the professor says Gilligan can afford to buy you a whole fleet of ships now. Oh, who cares about that? This is Skipper. And then it dawns on him what he said. He's not cut out to be a millionaire's son. And then he realizes buy me a whole fleet of ships. And of course, sorry about the edit, but that's actually Skipper getting excited seeing buy me a whole fleet of ships as the camera cuts to the Howell hut. And she's reminding him of the famous play Pygmalion. Darling, remember Pygmalion? Professor Higgins did wonders with Eliza. I don't want you to deal with the dirty, ignorant little gutter snipe, says Mr. Howell. We have Gilligan. And as he said that Gilligan comes in, did you call? And he drops his bags. And already the Howells don't seem to be very happy. That didn't take long. And here we are with later on that evening, Mr. Howell teaching Gilligan some manners, hopefully. And proper etiquette, as they say. So he says, well, Gilligan. And he gives him the napkin. And, of course, the first thing that Gilligan does is tuck it in his shirt like a bib. And Mr. Howell, of course, says, no, Gilligan.
Wait, was it supposed to go on his lap?
Yeah, actually, it's supposed to go on your lap.
Oh, okay, okay. I was wondering what he was doing wrong in that one there.
Yeah, it reminds me. One time I went to a barbecue rib restaurant. I can't remember the name of it, but the people were putting that. They were putting these on like biz. I was like, "What the hell is this?" They look like a bunch of pigs, and I didn't like it. So I don't like to sit with a bunch of people that actually act like pigs. So I left, and it's like, no, they can have a few manners, but to actually stick to bibs. And I remember one guy. I'll stick on. I'll make this quick. He had to be at least 300 or 400 pounds, and he had barbecue sauce all over his face, all over his hands. And he called the waitress over, waitress, waitress, with his mouth full of food. And she comes over, and he can't talk very much because his mouth's stuffed with food. And he's waving his arms, and he has her tie the bib around his neck for him. And that's when I got up and said, "That's it, I'm out of here." And I walked past those two. I said to the waitress, I said, "Why don't you just wheel a trough out here and get it over with?" And I never returned to that place. But anyway, so now we have Mr. Howell telling Gilligan, "No, that is not where you put your handkerchief. Hold it, don't." And of course, Gilligan's tugging on it. And we cut to later because apparently that lesson didn't go so well. And Gilligan is not looking very happy at this point. "My darling, I bid a spade," says Mr. Howell. And they ask Gilligan for his hand. And he says, "Gin." And they yell, "No, no, no." So apparently they're upset because Gilligan's winning. Now, Gilligan, I'm sure. In fact, once again, I'm going to apologize because there's a lot of jokes going on here. And since I have to skip every few seconds, I'm not able to cover them all. So I encourage you to please watch these episodes. Do not miss out on these jokes. You need to enjoy them from your own perspective. Now, Gilligan, I'm sure that you know what a finger bowl is. And he says, "Oh, sure." And he grabs it and he starts drinking from it. And of course, oh no, oh Gilligan.
No, what was
You know
wrong
what a
with
finger
that?
bowl is, right?
No, I was just
What's
asking what
that?
that.
No, a finger bowl has water in to put your fingers in to wash them before you eat. Or like I
Oh,
was saying with the barbecue place, if you're at a barbecue restaurant, you would say, yes, I know I have a napkin, but I want a finger bowl too. And they bring out a little bowl of water for you to rinse your hands in. Does that make sense?
okay.
It's been around since the medieval, centuries. Because back in the medieval days, there was a lot of germs going around. People's hands were dirty when they were eating, and they were getting sick a lot. So finger bowls have been around a long, long, long time. It's not very often you see people using them because most people don't have the etiquette. "Oh no, no," says Mrs. Howell. So now we cut to now. "Think very hard," says Mr. Howell. "Now tell me, think, what is money?" And he's trying to teach Gilligan finances. "I don't know, Mr. Howell. It's all so difficult. It's so hard to remember money is something you never spend." "That's it. Money is something you never spend," says Mr. Howell. And Gilligan's happy. "That's right. You make more. Good boy," he says. So basically, Mr. Howell is teaching him how to be a millionaire, how to be a tightwad. And all Gilligan can do and really know without grasping the entire concept is just memorize what Mr. Howell is telling him. "Now, what are your favorite sports?" he says. And he said, "My favorite sports are tennis, polo, sailing, and can you give me a hint?" And he says, "Oh, tally ho." And he says, "Tally ho, 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 ho," like a horse. He, whoa, he says. And Gilligan says, "Baseball." "Not baseball, huh? Let me see. I was coming to it. It's the hunt. My favorite sports are tennis, polo, sailing, and the hunt." "Oh, he's really going to make it, Thurston. He really is," says Mrs. Howell. "I'm so proud of you now. Your schools are." And Gilligan says, "Ooh, it passed." Well, he says Harvard. Sorry, I couldn't. It's in between the slides, but he says it's Harvard. "Oh, he's really going to make it, Thurston. He really is." And just telling somebody they graduated from Harvard is not going to qualify as a degree from Harvard, by the way, especially for Gilligan.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of you. Oh, listen, we got that. The way you said it was delightful. "First thing in the morning, what do you do?" Gilligan says, "You stand up at attention, face east, and salute Fort Knox." My God, this horrible text.
Yeah. Which
And the
is
government
empty,
is
by the
trying to
way.
give away. What's that?
Which is empty, by the way.
It probably is. I wouldn't doubt it, especially considering who our president is.
And they're refusing to do any audits on it.
Of course, because they don't want us to find out the truth.
Yeah.
Bill says really old millionaires are the best kind to be adopted by. I completely agree, Bill. If you know any, send them my way. Lemon Pie says it's an enormous belief that being a tightwad makes one rich. Well, it does help. Because obviously, if you spend your money all over the place, you're not going to make it rich. Okay, I'll make this fast too. There was a homeless guy in San Francisco. They called him Bushman, and he was on the wharf. He was homeless, and what he would do is he would jump out in front of the crowds and kind of spook them a little. They give him money. He put his kids through Stanford University on that money. So if you starve yourself to death and don't spend anything, you can actually save. It is possible. Captain Finity says not even having money makes you rich. No, but it makes you happy, Captain. I bet you it would cheer me up real fast if you sent me some of your money. Just kidding, Captain. You have to have an income. Yes, Captain. Exactly. Right. A big chunk of change really helps. An enormous hoard of cash is even better. But an income, of course, is even... I'll save that for another day. They decided in San Francisco they voted to give all black people $5 million apiece. And I'm not joking.
Yeah, I identify as black, okay?
Yeah, I'm gonna go and say, I know, right? I'm an albino. I'm a black albino. Or how about, I'm in transition. You know, I'm a BLT. I'm a black lesbian in transition. Where's my $5 million? So here we are with Gilligan saying, and the government is trying to give away our country. The rain in Spain falls mainly on the New York Stock Exchange. I know he's got it. Now they're all happy and celebrating. And we have beautiful Ginger. Imagine Gilligan being adopted by a millionaire. Yeah, my very best friend, says Marianne. Our best friend, they remind her. Being able to buy a whole fleet of ships, says the skipper. And now we cut to Marianne herself catching butterflies. And Gilligan catches up to her. Can I go butterfly hunting with you? And she says, no, you'll get your new clothes all dirty. I'll tell you what. I'll go catch some and bring it to you, okay? She says. Yeah, but Marianne, I like to go butterfly hunting, but she's not really listening at that point, and she takes off. And of course, Gilligan feels a little let down, or left out. And now we have the skipper and professor working on the huts. Skipper says, you know, this tar should make the huts really waterproof. It's wonderful the way you made this tar, said the skipper.
Yeah.
Hi, Skipper. Hi, Professor.
You think they would have done that at the beginning of the series?
Well, yeah, especially before they had rain, right?
Yeah.
It would have helped, I guess, if they would have added the line. You know, it's a good thing we're tarring these now that the rainy season's coming up, or the monsoon's coming, or something like that.
Yeah. Lemon Pie said, guess what could be sticky and remain poor quite easily.
Yeah, stingy.
And what could be generous and wealthy also.
Yes, I know. I'll take the second one.
The ideal combo.
Right. Captain Vinny said the ideal combo. I agree, Captain. So here we have Gilligan, and he says, hi, Skipper. Hi, Professor. Well, Gilligan, look at you. Doesn't he look all snazzy? Oh, thank you, but we can't. And Gilligan offers to help with the tar. And they say, oh, thank you, but we can't possibly ask for help. And he says, sure, I can. I want to help. Now, don't trouble yourself, says the skipper. We'll manage by ourselves. And Gilligan said, this is no trouble. And Professor reminds him, men of great wealth must learn to delegate authority. I don't want to sit. I want to tar, says Gilligan. And he starts struggling with the bucket of tar with the skipper. And it says, give it. Please sit down now, says Skipper keeps telling him to sit down, and Gilligan wants to tar.
Yeah.
Oh.
Now, what I thought was funny with this scene, I was watching it. They had the wrong camera angle from it because you can see that they purposely dumped it on Skipper, like as the worst angle they could have done for that scene.
Yeah, unfortunately, right? It was a little comedic. Many of your caliber are meant to sit. I bet as these. I apologize, everybody, for these horrible subtitles are way off. Please just rest your signing arm, he says. No, Skipper, I don't want to rest. I just want to help Tar. So here's where they struggle. like Gorilla was talking about. And that's what we get, of course. No surprise there. And Skipper's struggling to keep his anger in check. And Gilligan says, Skipper, control yourself. No, Professor says, Skipper, control yourself. He didn't mean to. And Skipper says, I know that, Professor. What did you say? I said that you didn't mean to do this, said Skipper. Gilligan, even the best of us have our little accidents. Now, please don't worry about it. Yes, Gilligan. So Gilligan leaves, and of course his clothes are already messed up, the brand new ones. And we have Ginger hanging some laundry. And he said, what are you doing, Ginger? And she says, doing a love scene with Cary Grant. What do you think? And she said, oh, Gilligan, I didn't know it was you. Hello. And they exchange hellos. And she says, Ma, don't you look handsome today? And he says, but I'm all covered with tar. Probably chocolate syrup. Well, some men wear tar better than others, she says. I'll help you hang the clothes, and we'll go butterfly hunting, says Gilligan. But then you always were so divinely witty, she says. I was, he said. Sure, I always felt you belonged to the theater. There you are, brilliant, young, rich producer, mad about your leading lady. Can you see yourself? And he says, nope. And she says, why not? He says, you told me to close my eyes. Now, since you can have anything at all, what do you want? She asks. And he says, I'll help you with the clothes, and we'll go butterfly hunting. Gilligan, hanging up the clothes is menial work. Why is everyone telling me what to do? I know what I can do, he says. Listen, Ginger, I'm just as good at clothes hanger up as I was. And he starts to help her, and unfortunately he rips this clothing that he has in his hands. Sorry, Ginger, are you mad? Oh, no, not at all. It's what I always wanted, she said. I'm sure she had a line, but we couldn't catch it there in the slides. And we have Mr. Howell back at the Howell hut saying,
yeah,
go ahead.
She was basically said she liked to have a breezy gap.
Right, a breezy gap or something like that. I guess it was her dress. Hello, Gilligan, my boy. Where are you? Says Mr. Howell. Oh, there you are. I have a surprise for you, he says. And Gilligan says, oh, have you adopted somebody else? And he says, adopted somebody else? No. I'm giving you a coming out party. And Gilligan says, coming out of what? That means a lot of different things these days.
That's a lot different nowadays.
God. Yeah, you gotta watch what you say now.
I laughed at that and I was like, that's so different than what I heard it coming out.
It would have been funny if Gilligan would have said, I've never been in the closet. But it says, giving you a coming out party. And Gilligan doesn't know what it is, so he says, coming out of what? Coming out of the murky, dreary jungle of untutored mediocrity. Yuck, I better go take a shower, says Gilligan. That's my boy. That's my best friends won't tell me, he says. I'm going to give you a big party. You've learned your lessons well, says Mr. Howell, and tomorrow you're going to be officially launched in society. You're a very, very lucky young man. Did you hear the one about the movie star who was divorced? Gilligan hears jokes outside the window. And he sees the other castaways talking. So many times she got custody of a judge. And Gilligan misses hanging out with his friends. I guess it's not very fun being in the Howell hut. And later on that evening, as they're sitting near the fire, all right, ready now? Uh-huh. And they start singing, row, row, row your boat. Gently down the stream. Merrily, merrily, merrily. Life is but a dream. And there's Gilligan reading the financial pages. That newspaper has to be over a year old, because obviously it's the same one that Thurston brought with them on the island, and they haven't had any subscriptions updated. Life is but a dream. Don't you want to go out and join your friends? Says Mr. Howell. What for? They're just laughing and singing, says Gilligan. I get to stay here and read these great financial reports, and you know for sure there's no way Gilligan understands what they say. Yeah, yes, the masses are so easily amused, aren't they, says Mr. Howell. I bet they even think they're having fun, huh? Because it sure sounds like they're having fun. There now, Gilligan, this is all ready for your debut, says Mrs. Howell. And I'm sure it'll fit you perfectly. Tomorrow evening, all your friends will meet the new marvelous, like it was made for you. Well, the new Mr. Howell. And I'm sure, sorry, I can't get all the stills. Oh, what a joyous occasion. There it is. Gilligan Thurston Howell. Oh, these texts again. Oh, isn't it thrilling? I'll never forget the night of my debut party, she said. Neither will the world forget, he said. That was the night Napoleon got it at Waterloo. Of course, a jab at her. And he does apologize to her and say just a joke. But you're supposed to look happy, he says to Gilligan. You look like you lost your last share of stock. And he says, everybody's treating me too fancy like I was made of glass. And I'm going to see if I can catch this too. It was a slight mistake they had. Go back. And try not to get a strike. Or copyright warning or whatever it's called. Okay. So as you can see here, we have Mr. and Mr. Howell, Mrs. Howell and Mr. Howell sitting at the table. Gilligan is heading towards the window. And as you notice, Mr. Howell is not wearing glasses. And I don't even see them on the table. Now watch as I hit play. And of course, it goes longer than I expected. Let me go back. And it cuts, and he has his glasses on. So I thought that was kind of noticeable. I guess at that point he figured he needed them, and he grabbed them really quick. Anyway, Gilligan says, everybody's been treating me too fancy, like I was made of glass. Not glass, my boy, gold. You're made of solid gold. From your toes to your head, solid gold. And he says, I don't feel any different, but you're different, says Mrs. Howell. Everybody treats you with more courtesy and great respect, she says. And everybody wants something from you, right? Right. What do I do about it? You use it, says Mr. Howell. The way any self-respecting modern millionaire, you use it. Power, my boy, you are king. And I get anything I want, anything you want, he says. He says, but I think I want an... Oh, the text. And I'm trying to remember what kind of cake he says, and I don't remember off the top of my head. He did not say Abbey cake. But I can't remember what he said. Do you remember, Gorilla?
No. Yeah, I'm not quite sure. I could look it up.
Okay. Well, it's not Abbey cake. That makes no sense. But here we are later on that evening. Mr. Howell asleep. I don't want power. Or listen, Gilligan is rustling and having a nightmare. I don't want power. I don't want to be a king. I don't want power. I don't want to be a king. He keeps repeating. And of course, we have one of our famous Gilligan's Island dream sequences. Mr. and Mrs. Howell are king and queen, and there's a throne in the center for Gilligan. Good morning, royal daddy. Good morning, royal mummy. Not until you've seen the morning list of supplicants, they said. And he says, I don't like supplicants. I dislike supplicants. I hate supplicants. What are supplicants? Bring on the first supplicant.
Sure. Hey, Lemon Pie says a bee is stingy. Then Captain gives us a bee and laughing. Lemon Pie says, is this the one where Gilligan steals all their money?
I don't remember that.
I don't remember that episode. I remember a gambling episode where Mr. Howell got up to like $12 million or like $6 million, and then he conned Skipper.
Yes, he conned Skipper out of the money.
Yeah.
But maybe it's an episode we haven't gotten to yet. And framed Skipper? Oh, I don't know. That sounds odd. That doesn't sound like Gilligan, but hey, you never know. I haven't seen the series in many, many years, and we haven't gotten to seasons 2 or 3 yet, so it's still possible. And now we have Mr. Howell saying to Gilligan, Your Majesty, everyone in the kingdom wants your crown. And here we have the first supplicant. And he says, Hello, Marianne. Oh, Your Highness, jest with me, she says. Oh, Your Excellency, I cannot. And he says, Why not? Well, for one thing, I'm a girl. And he says, Well, I'm a boy. Does it matter? God, Queen Mother, the king is in need of a higher education, says Mr. Howell. Take the crown and be king? Oh, do not tease me so. I came but to ask you to grant me a farm, she says. And he says, to raise butterflies? He says, no, to provide sheep for the royal table. And he says, well, we're already crowded enough as it is. And Mr. Howell always recognizing a good joke. Aha, a good one, a jolly jest. And she bows, and I believe that's a curtsy. Professor Astronomer, you later, my liege. Right now, there's much work to be done. If you would grant the equipment I ask, he says, I would discover great marvels in science. Marvels, not marbles. Marvels. I would discover great marvels in science for your kingdom. Ah, Copernicus already. And Gilligan says, like what? And he says, Copernicus already has the Earth moving around the sun. Oh, he's something that needs discovery. And sorry, but it's skipping jokes. So, Professor wants to invent frozen foods. How does that strike you, my liege? He says. And Gilligan says, I can't remember the joke, but it's something along with it sounds cold, but it's one of the jokes that are caught in between the slideshow. Let's see. Pythagoras has done this. That is, chip off the old scepter, says Mr. Howell. Now go away, says Gilligan. And here we have the third person coming, and Your Highness, I'm busy. And he's trying to catch butterflies. And Your Majesty, she's trying to get his attention. And of course, it's Ginger. And he says, all I want is one little dance. Oh, she says, all I want is one little dance with your royal masculine cuteness. One royal foxtrot or one. I wasn't even going to catch him. Stop. And Mr. Howell says, King's word is the royal command. No, I don't want to be king. Really, I don't want to be king, says Gilligan. No. I don't want to be king. Really, I don't want to be king. And he starts stomping on his crown. And as he wakes up from his nightmare, still stomping his foot. And he wakes up from the nightmare panting. And we have later that evening, we have Gilligan applying tar to the outside of the hut. And he wakes up Skipper. Who's out here? And he says, just me, Skipper. Gilligan, what in the name of the seven seas are you doing? And he says, I don't want to be king. I don't want to chop off your head. I can't be a Howell. I don't want to disappoint you. I don't want to be rich. I just want to be me, he says. Are you mad? And Skipper says, no, I'm not mad. Every man has a right to be himself. I help my dog just for a second. All right. There we go. And Skipper asks him, have you told the Howells yet? And Gilligan says, that's a problem. I can't. And why not? He says, they believe that's what I am. How do I tell them I'm not? And Skipper says, first they broke the mold and then they made you. But you know, little buddy, in spite of yourself, you still have to be king. You do? And he says, certainly. I think you know exactly what to do, he says. What? Says Gilligan, and says, we'll ask the professor. Here they are talking to the professor, telling them about their dilemma. And the professor says, yes, I think you have an answer. And he says, I told you the professor would know, says the Skipper. You were right. What's the answer? And the professor thinks about it and says, ask a woman. So we cut to the women's hut. And Gilligan's explaining to the ladies, so we can be friends like we used to be. And I think we all owe Gilligan a thanks, says Marianne. If that's what you want, Gilligan, says Ginger. Hey, I got an idea. So they huddle. And we cut to Gilligan's coming out party celebration outside the Howell hut. I'm excited, says Gilligan. How do I look? You know, your debut is coming up. The social end of this season. This is how busy making the last minute preparations? I beg your pardon. Like all rich kids, how does $10,000 a month at you? So Gilligan asked Mr. Howells for $10,000 a month allowance. And Mr. Howells is shocked. Well, that's more than I give Mrs. Howell for her. Oh, well, we'll talk about it later, he says, as the guests come. Aloha. No, I might need the money for one thing or another, says Ginger. No, Gilligan says that. I might need the money for one thing or another. And he says, promise to get 50 thou for a new play when we get back. So he's already promising everybody money. And as you can see, Mr. Howell is not taking that very well. You do what? Oh, we'll be right back. I can pick up extra dough anytime I want. Right, Skip. Oh, you're definitely a chief. We own the minnow now. So Gilligan tells Mr. Howell that he bought the minnow from the skipper. And Mr. Howell says, you own the minnow? Yeah, I won the old tub in the card game last night. More or less, you can judge a dumb kid by his cover. So Mr. Howell is starting to have regrets. Howell, a hustler? I may faint. Let me get you a stool there, dear Dad, says Gilligan. And as he does that, this card falls out of his sleeve. Aha, ace of spades, So Howell IV cheats at cards. Oh, scandal of a shame. What do you have got to say for yourself, you low life? Martinis, anyone? Yes, I can use a drink. I'm frankly astonished at this ghastly metamorphosis, says Mr. Howell. And Skipper says, well, never mind that. What about my boat? And Gilligan says, keep it. See if I care. My dad will buy me another one. Mr. Howell, won't you, dear old dad? And that's when Mr. Howell said, I could kill myself. I might climb up on top of my money and jump off. And here we have Gilligan mixing a drink. So I guess they have vermouth and gin on the island. I don't know if they learned how to make their own or what. Now, here you are, Professor. Thank you. So he gives the professor a martini. Sensational, huh? And Professor says, I'm afraid it's a bit dry. Are you telling me one of my perfect martinis is too dry, says Gilligan? Yes. We've been at it for years. It's too dry. Never mind that, Gilligan. Make him another drink, says Skipper. I will. He wants a nice wet martini. I'll give him a nice wet martini. Here we go. Nice wet martini. And Gilligan walks over to the professor, takes a taste of the martini, and then dumps it on the professor's head. And everyone's surprised. Oh, Gilligan. And Gilligan turns to Mr. Howell. Buy him a new suit, dear old dad. Mr. Howell, I find the behavior of your son, and he calls him a few names, but don't forget obnoxious is one of them. I may strike G. Thurston Howell IV. Only in his mood he may strike back. I apologize, it's skipping through the jokes. So we're getting incomplete sentences. Surprise, surprise, we're Gilligan's coming out party, say the girls. Ginger's specialty of coconut cream pie. And Mr. Howell says, we could use a pleasant moment right now. And Gilligan says, you brought me a coconut cream pie? And she said, it was hard to make cream from coconut milk. Don't you know my grandmother fed me coconut cream all day, he said. And she says, pretend it's Loganberry then. Yeah. He says, it's coconut cream. And she yells, stop. And he gets ready to hit Ginger in the face with pie.
Yeah. No, that joke didn't sit very well with me. Like, I understood the setup for this whole thing, But he's been eating coconut pie for the last how many ever episodes?
Right, ever since they've been on the island. It's been his favorite from Marianne, right?
Like I said, I understood the whole joke, but it's like every episode we see him eating coconut pie.
Several of them sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, hell, it's just last week he ate 3 of them in a single night.
That's right.
Yeah. And Lemon Pie says, I was joking. I don't think Gilligan ever robs the Howells and deletes them and frames Skipper.
That would be an interesting twist. So we have Mr. Howell getting up to interrupt Gilligan from throwing the pie. But by doing that, of course, Mr. Howell gets the pie in the face. And he says, trying to retain his dignity, excuse me, everyone. I would like a word with Gilligan. And Gilligan says, don't you mean Gilligan Thurston Howell IV? And he says, no, I mean Gilligan. So they walk off set, and of course Skipper's laughing. And he says, the name Howell has always stood for bad text, but I think it's clean. Always stood for style, nobleness, oblige. This terrible text, my goodness, who wrote these subtitles? Don't forget money. Money means power, he said. Responsibility in your behavior towards others. You're unbelievable. You're crude. You're rude. You're bullish. You know, I'm thinking that the subtitles maybe are done by an AI. They're that bad. And don't forget obnoxious. I really was obnoxious, says Gilligan. And he says, you know, you're very vulgar. Okay, Mr. Howe, you don't have to say anymore. I understand. You don't want to be my father anymore. And when we get back home, and Mr. Howe says, no, and when we get back home, you'll be rewarded, something like that, but I can't catch all the frames. But you just weren't cut out to be a Howe. So he said Gilligan will still get a reward when they get back home. No hard feelings, boy, as he taps, and they tap each other on the shoulder. And there comes Mrs. Howe. Oh, Thurston, couldn't you give him one more chance? And he says he didn't want one. That boy's all heart. Not a bad actor either. He's an actor? Yes, my dear. And that's when the Howells realized that he was doing all that just so he could be back with his friends. And of course, they're all happy to see him. Oh, Thurston, he really didn't want to be a Howell, did he? You're a marvelous judge of human nature, dear. Above all, I'm a Howell, which is synonymous with being astute, generous, charming, kind, and handsome. And above all, modest. So here we have Gilligan the next day. It's sure nice to be wearing my old clothes again, he says. Nice having you back, little buddy, says the skipper. Oh, that must have been murdered. Let me dirty you up a little. He says, you know, not everyone can be a Howell. That's great. You hear that? What do you mean, skipper? Well, from now on, it's S. Thurston Howell V. Did we miss something here? But basically, Mr. Howell comes in and says, who put the net over the quicksand pit? There it is. One question. Who put a net over the quicksand? And Skipper says, I did, Mr. Howell. They might forget about the quicksand. And he says, well, your quick thinking saved Mrs. Howell's life. And Gilligan says, that's great. You hear that? And what do you mean, Skipper? Well, from now on, it's S. Thurston Howell V. What? He says, you heard me, son. Oh, come on, Mr. Howell. And he says, dear old dad. Please, Mr. Howell. He says, Dad, do you add? And Gilligan snickers. And we have the end of this episode. And we have our closing credits.
Yeah, this episode was like okay, you know, but just like I don't know, I'm not sure why it wasn't like over the top for me, but it was okay.
Yeah, I guess the writing wasn't as funny as some of the prior episodes. So yeah, and like this one and the one with the painter, you think, oh, they could have been better, right? Let's see here. All right. Now, oh, by the way, let me see. Am I? I'm gonna get something to drink. I'll be right back.
All right. Oh, second episode. Now that one there was a lot better than this first one. Here, this first one just, I don't know, it just kind of stood out. It's just kind of like, okay. It's kind of like some of those forgotten episodes in Star Trek, you know, where they weren't so bad that you remember them for being bad, but they weren't so good that you actually remember them. So, it's kind of like that. And plus the second episode there, that's one that was really relatable there with the whole nose thing. Yeah. Put my mouse in the wrong spot there. Alrighty, so I think we got all the comments here covered and all that. So
All right, I'm back. Sorry about that, you guys. I usually try to have something ready to go, but I just finished that first can of soda, so I don't keep drinking something. My throat's going to dry up, and I'm hopefully that won't happen. Okay, so now we're ready for our second episode. Let me get queued up. Which is season 1, episode 36. And the size of the frame here. There we are. Okay. So let me explain what's going on here. So we were on season 1, episode 36, A Nose by Any Other Name. And this episode premiered on June 12th of 1965. And by the way, everybody in the chat, thank you for sticking through this far. So we'll get through this as quick as I can. I know it's getting late. I appreciate your attention and your patience.
oh, you wanted my attention?
Well, at least 50% sometimes. I know you're tired, though. I know it's late for you. What is it going on? What, 11:35 for you?
10.
10:35. Well, I'll try to get through this quick. So now, get my subtitles up. I forget subtitles. All right, all set. Oh, by the way, just a reminder, everybody, if you watch my horror streams on Tuesdays, if you come to my channel for that, I have the new poll up. Please it's in my community tab. Please take a look at it when you get a chance. And tell me which one of those movies you might want to vote to see next. So here we are.
I got my 40 votes in.
Got your 40 votes in. Well, I wish I could add 40 to counteract that, but I'm unfortunately not allowed to vote in my own poll. We have our opening credits with our heroic crew. And remember, next week, all of this is going to be in color. And also, we'll have the professor and Mary Ann right here instead of Ann the rest. Thank goodness, finally. So here we go. We open up with Skipper and Gilligan hunting coconuts. Written by Elroy Schwartz, which is Sherwood Schwartz's son. One of his sons. He's got a couple, at least. And directed by Hal Cooper. And, of course, we're getting that usual look from Skipper. And, of course, nice of Skipper to make Gilligan carry all the coconuts. Gilligan, don't you think it's clever, the professor? This is the way the Dutch girls carry milk, says Skipper. And Gilligan says, no wonder they had to wear wooden shoes. And he says, well, what does that mean? And he says, well, maybe one coconut weighs nothing, but 15 of these weigh something. We've got enough coconuts here to last 6 months, he says. Well, let's get 6 more, says the Skipper. There's no more left to get, says Gilligan. And Skipper says, we will find some. And that's when he spots these other ones up in a tree. And he has Gilligan climb the tree. Gilligan, I'll start back with these. And there's Gilligan at the top of the tree. Sure, Gilligan, do this. Gilligan, do that, he says. Talking to himself, pretty much. Gilligan, go here. Gilligan, go there. Gilligan, get this. Gilligan, get that. My name wasn't Gilligan. There's just 5, and Skipper said 6, he says. Yeah, I'll get him the 6. And then he sees there's one more that he starts to reach for. There it is. And unfortunately, he reaches a little too far and falls out of the tree. Thud.
And hail there, Euler Greg.
Hello, Euler Greg. So good to see you. Welcome. Glad to see you. And Gilligan falls out of the tree, lands on the ground, and is yelling, help. And the Skipper hears this, turns around, and rushes back to help Gilligan. Oh, my buddy, oh, please. And the professor comes running, and the Skipper explains, I heard him shout. Skipper, what happened? He must have fallen out of the tree, Professor. Oh, well, easy now, gently, gently. Oh, watch it now, they say. And then Professor says, let's roll him over. There we go. So they carefully roll over Gilligan, and Professor explains there doesn't seem to be any broken bones. And Skipper says he probably had the wind knocked out of him. Yes.
Yeah. And welcome Herc 130 says Channel Raid. Well, it's just me, so everyone sit back down.
Well, Herc, I'm glad you're here. I was going to say which channel, but I guess you're the only one here, or it was your channel. Thank you, Herc. Okay, so Skipper says probably had the wind knocked out of him. And now, of course, Skipper regrets it, and I made him climb and get more. If anything happens to him, I'll never forgive myself. And Gilligan starts groaning as he's waking up. And they stand him up and help him on his feet. Up, easy, there you are. And as Gilligan straightens his hat, we notice that there's something seems to be wrong with his nose. So apparently he landed on his nose. Gilligan, take a deep breath. But breathe through your mouth, little buddy, says Skipper. So now we have Gilligan with a sore, swollen nose. And the professor's helping him with a cold compress. He says, take it easy, Gilligan. It's just a cold compress. Oh, you poor, poor nose, says Mrs. Howell. It really is an awful mess. It's actually swollen to the size of a 55-carat diamond, she says. Oh, please, Mrs. Howell, says the professor. Gilligan, I'm sure it's just bruised. And she said, Ginger says it's only slightly swollen. Slightly swollen? You better look up for the pelicans during mating. Look out for the pelicans during mating season, she says. Oh, Ginger. You ought to be happy to be alive, says the professor. It's a soft, it's busted, you know, something. It's the first real accident since we were shipwrecked, says the professor. I think we should be prepared for emergencies. And Mrs. Howell agrees, yes, this could happen to any of us. And the professor says, I have a medical book. That's a marvelous idea. So professor comes up with the idea that they need to all learn first aid. And of course, Mrs. Howell says that's a marvelous idea. I used to be a nurse's aide. And professor says, well, then you should know something about emergency treatment. And she says, no, not really. They took my picture quite often pouring tea, but I didn't know very much about aiding, of course. And professor asks, how about you, Ginger? Have you had any experience as a nurse? And she says, no, but I'm sure I'd be wonderful at it. I look very good in white. And the professor says, now that should take the swelling down. Gilligan, you know that. Never mind, Mrs. Howell. Let's get started on our first aid lessons. Now we have them practicing on Mr. Howell, wrapping up bandages. But be careful of that wrist, Marianne, says Mr. Howell. That's the hand that signs checks. And the professor has his book. And there's Ginger. All right, I had to help my dog up for a second there. And he said, I give a mouth-to-mouth. Yes, Ginger, what would... It skips the jokes. It makes it so unfunny. It ruins it when it skips the jokes.
Yeah.
And Professor says, now, Ginger, suppose a man is lying unconscious. He just suffered a severe concussion. What would you do? And she says, I'd give a mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. And he says, that wouldn't help. And she says, it wouldn't hurt. And he said, to make sure he doesn't suffer from... He says, no, you cover him with a blanket to make sure he doesn't suffer from shock. And then she says, and then I give him mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Yeah. I'd be having brain concussions all the time on that island if that was the case. Oh, you don't need anything quite so elaborate. I don't think I'd have Thurston anything but gift wrap, she says. They're talking about the bow on his leg. And he says, our class will tell, of course. Now, Professor said, now listen, an important point is how you turn. Ginger, you place your hand under Mr. Howell's shoulders. This is how you place your hands under his back, and Marianne under his knees. Very gently turn him over. And unfortunately, they need a little bit more practice. So Mr. Howell hits the ground, and we cut to Mr. Howell in a tourniquet. And Professor's explaining, it's just a sprain, Mr. Howell. And he says, well, I hope so. And he says, if it isn't, I won't be able to cuddle my kitty properly. And then Mrs. Howell, can you tell us what we did wrong last time, Professor? He said, you're supposed to turn the patient over gently. So now we have the skipper willing to stand in. He says, do you want me to help them? Says Skipper. And he says, no, you're unconscious. And then Skipper says, that's right. Now take it easy, girls. Okay, he says. And they try to lift him. Unfortunately, they have a little bit of trouble because it is the skipper. And the professor says, a little harder than that. He says, okay, push. And as you can see, they're having trouble lifting him, of course. All together, 1, 2, 3. And Skipper falls to the ground.
Yeah. Okay, Lemon Pie says, Herc! Lemon says, hey, Euler. Herc says, hi, Lemon Pie. Euler, Craig, Captain Affinity. Euler says, hey, Lemon. And Tommy says, coming from Pop Culture Breakdown with Tommy.
Do me.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us, Herc. I appreciate that. Good to see you all. Excellent people here tonight. And Matt G. Hello, Matt G.
And he's laughing.
It better be, and this is where the slides kind of missed the joke earlier, but Professor told Mr. Howell that the arm should be fine by bedtime. And now the skipper fell off the bed. He's telling Skipper the same thing. It better be better before you go to bed tonight. It'll be better before you go to bed tonight. Same thing he told Mr. Howell. And of course, forever cheerful, Skipper says, thanks, Professor. I must say, we make a handsome pair of bookends, says Mr. Howell. And Mrs. Howell, this is dreadful. We're running out of victims.
You there? Hello?
Ooh, there we are. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I was like, wait, it was quiet there for a second.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I didn't know I hit the mute. Okay, let me go back a couple frames. Apologize, everybody. So the professor fell, and now they're joking about it. I must say we make a handsome pair of bookends. And this is dreadful, says Mr. Howell, running out of victims. And the professor volunteers and also falls. The professor not only injures his elbow, but also his knee. I'm sure it'll be better before you go to bed tonight, says Mr. Howell. And is that better before it begins to stiffen up on me? So we have the skipper, the professor limp off, and we have Gilligan over by the water with the compress, still nursing his swollen nose, talking to himself in the water. Is my nose getting smaller or is my face getting bigger, he says. And as he says that, here comes the skipper. Oh, well, Professor's giving us a first aid course, says the professor, for emergencies. But what he didn't say was first emergency would be the first aid course. How's the nose, little buddy? Terrible, says Gilligan. I think it'll stay that way, this way. And in a delicate... Of course, you can't get all the jokes. Professor said it'll be a while before that swelling went down. I wasn't too handsome to begin with, he says. It's like something that should be hanging in a delicatessen. And he says, it's all my fault. I ordered you up that tree, says the skipper. Skipper, it's not your fault. And it is. Skipper, you didn't make me fall. Gilligan, no matter what you say, it's all my fault. I shouldn't give you orders, and I'll never give you another order. It was mine, and that's an order. So, of course, I skip. And of course, Skipper accidentally hits his arm. And here comes the professor to say, how's that nose coming along? Gilligan, I didn't know broken arms were contagious. And he said, from our first aid course.
Wait, I thought the
And
professor hurt his knee.
his elbow and his knee.
Oh, okay.
And Skipper says, I wish you'd never found that chapter in the medical book. And of course, we missed what Gilligan said. It must have after that chapter on first aid. Gilligan, your nose isn't broken. It's just bruised, says the professor. In a few days, the swelling will be gone. No, it won't because it's broken. We operate. And Skipper reminded him, the professor says your nose isn't broken. It isn't broken.
Is that an order?
And I guess that's an order. And of course, no, it won't because it's broken. We operate. It isn't broken. Or else it would hurt right now. And he touches it, and it does hurt. Gilligan, your nose isn't broken, they remind him. Skipper, I know your nose isn't broken. My nose is broken. Here we have it back at the Howell hut. I just finished your beautiful new sling, she says. I've just come from seeing Gilligan, says Mr. Howell. And, oh, it's terrible. Let me try on your new sling, darling. Now, darling, be very, very careful. Oh, that's nice, he says. There must be something we can do for Gilligan. Maybe I should go over and cheer him up, she says. It is if you're an ant. Something about his nose, the joke. She says his nose isn't really important. And then Mr. Howell says it is if you're an anteater. Oh, lovely. Oh, I'm sorry, dear. Bad joke. You mean I really must convince Gilligan? But a nose doesn't make a man. Over here we have Gilligan looking at himself in the mirror. And we have knocking on the door. I've been looking for you everywhere, says Mrs. Howell. Just look for my nose, he says. I'll be somewhere near it. Yes, now let me take a good look at you, she says. No, Mrs. Howell, I'm a mess. Oh, au contraire. Is it that bad, she says. And she says, I think your new nose is marvelous. It really adds a great deal to your face. And he says, yeah, 2 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, you're much more attractive this way. Sorry. Excuse me. And you're so rugged, so masculine. It's a real man's nose. He says, I should hope so. You never saw anything like this on Miss America, he said. It's true, but I think you're very fortunate, she says. This nose gives your face such strength. Good, my face will need a lot more strength, he says. So he's acting like just to hold it up. And here we are with wonderful Ginger, of course. And Gilligan working on a basket. And of course, all he has to do is look and see the knee, and he knows it's Ginger. And she asks, can I sit down? And he says, sure. What are you doing? And he says, I'm making a new fish trap. Oh, you wouldn't have to make a trap to catch me, she says. Huh? He said. You know, Gilligan, there's something about your face that... Yes.
I'm biting my tongue on that one. I'm really biting my tongue on that one.
About the trap?
Well, he says he's making a new fish trap, and Ginger says, you don't need to make a trap for me. I'm so biting my tongue because you two will not like the joke I want to make so bad.
You two sucks. I do admit that. I don't know. It's irresistible now, she says. And he said, must be my nose. Oh, yeah. And she said, masculine. And he says, exactly. Your face is rugged. Now it just gives it so much strength. He says, that's exactly what Mrs. Howell said. But she's right. You become so attractive, Gilligan.
Oh, did your audio die again?
Nope, I'm here.
Oh, sorry. You just like stopped talking there for a second. I was like, what? Oh, shoot. Did it die again?
No, sometimes there's a little bit of noise in the background, so I try to mute it to drown it out. Or if I have to help my dogs, which seem to be constantly wanting attention. Right, Romeo? What's up? Anyway, she's right. You become so attractive, Gilligan, says Ginger. You know, you look like Cyrano de Bergerac now. And he says, Cyril who? De Brugia what? And she says, Cyrano de Bergerac. Well, he was a man with an odd-looking nose, and the most beautiful woman in the world was in love with him, Roxanne. Oh, that's a beautiful name, says Gilligan. Yeah, Roxanne. And he says, no, Cyrano de Bergerac. You know, all through history, women have been attracted. And he says, my nose is very interesting. And she says, very. How about a little kiss, she says. And he says, sure. And then he just turns away. How about a week from tomorrow, he says. Yeah, by then my nose wouldn't hurt if it touches you, he said. And of course, poor Ginger's frustrated and walks away. And now we have Gilligan back at the mirror. If a nose like this would make girls throw themselves at me, it doesn't make me look handsomer though. And now we have Marianne, and he says, "Come in, hi Gilligan, oh hi Marianne. Tonight's gonna be a full moon. I was wondering if you would enjoy it with me," she said. And he says, "Well, maybe so. See, Gilligan, I always have liked you, but well, somehow now it's." And he says, "It's my nose." She says, "I guess you're right." And he says, "Take Roxanne and Cyrano de Bergerac." All three of them settled down and lived happily ever after. She says, "Three," and he says, "Roxanne, Cyrano, and his nose." Gilligan, I think it's wonderful the way you've adjusted, she says. I know the accident might have spoiled my looks. And until the night, good, okay. And there he goes back to the mirror. Confidence restored. And we have the ladies. Gilligan really thinks he looks better now. Yes, he believed every word. It's lucky I'm a good actress, says Ginger. Oh, that poor boy, says Mrs. Howell. We've got to keep saying these things. Now run along, girls. We mustn't let Gilligan know of our plan. And as we do that, we see Gilligan right there listening to the whole thing, of course. And Gilligan doesn't seem to be very happy. And he's pouting, of course. And back to talking to his image in the water. And he throws a rock in the water. And here we have the professor examining his nose. "Professor, you got to fix my nose," he says. "I don't like it anymore. Everybody hates the way I look. You've got to operate on me and fix it." And he says, "I won't take no for an answer. You've got the medical book. I won't take no for an answer. Operate on my nose and fix it." "Gilligan, I said I'd operate," says the professor. And Gilligan repeats, "I don't care what you said. Operate on my nose and fix it." And the professor repeats, "Gilligan, I said I was going to operate." Gilligan repeats, "I thought it was swollen, but I was wrong." "We'll set up an operating room," says the professor. "You will?" "Yes." "Professor, I'd be more than happy to prepare for surgery." And when Gilligan hears that, he passes out. But that's unfortunately in between frames. So once again, I recommend everybody to watch this. So now we have the professor getting the medical room ready. "Hi, Professor. Oh, Gilligan. Just finished cooking up an anesthetic for you." And he said, "What's that?" And he says, "For you to sleep during the operation." And he said, "Sleep?" And he said, "Well, would you rather stay up?" And he says, "Keep cooking." You see Gilligan. And he's now explaining what it is with anesthetic, which are analgesic in nature due to the presence. So he's explaining to Gilligan that he found all the items there on the island. I don't want to repeat exactly what he's saying because last time I did that, when he explained a recipe, I got a copyright warning. And there's Gilligan sniffing the stuff. And Professor tells him, "Don't smell it." And Gilligan says, "I don't smell a thing." And he says, "Gilligan, don't breathe that."
Yeah.
Of
And
course,
hail there, Admiral Teague.
"Hello, Admiral T. Good to see you there, sir. I hope you're having a great night." We are about a little over halfway through this Gilligan's Island episode. And Gilligan keeps saying, "I don't feel a thing. I don't smell a thing. I was worried about the operation before, but now I'm not worried anymore because you're being so careful." And Gilligan starts giggling. Yes?
Yeah, I liked how they slowly started make his voice higher as he was talking.
Yeah, kind of like helium.
Yeah.
I think it's supposed to be maybe like a mixture of nitrous oxide.
Yeah.
And of course, Professor tells him, Gilligan, I think you'd better sit down. And Gilligan says, I probably just need some more roots or flowers. Are you sure this is stuff that's supposed to work on me? Because it doesn't have any effects, says Gilligan. And as he says that, he starts to get drowsy. And Professor catches him. And we have the skipper running across Gilligan. It's just the idea. I have a wonderful surprise for you. You have a surprise? What is it? Says the skipper. The fact is, the professor is going to operate. There's no reason. Well, sorry, I'm not going to read all the text because it's skipping jokes. So we'll do the best we can. So basically, this is Gilligan telling Skipper that the professor is going to operate on his nose, and he's all excited. And Skipper says, how would it be to have a nose like Cary Grant? And for those of you youngins out there, that's an old actor.
So technically, the girls didn't have to make him up a bunch of noses then.
What's that?
I guess the girls didn't have to make a bunch of different noses then. If you want, he already has the nose picked out that he wants.
Yeah, I know, right? And Gilligan says, I'd look pretty silly with a girl's nose. And Skipper says, with noses, it doesn't make any difference. And he says, yeah, but I had to powder and everything. Oh, I forget what I mentioned about Julie Andrews' nose, says Skipper. Well, wonderful. Come on, Gilligan. Now we have Skipper mixing up some clay. And we have Gilligan. I think it's the right consistency now, says the Skipper. And Mr. Howells says, okay, I've got this apron to keep him tidy. And Skipper explains, Gilligan, this is clay. We're going to make an exact duplicate of your head. And we could try different noses on it. So Gilligan doesn't look too excited, but, he's going to do what he's got to do. Would you like a nose like mine? The Howell nose is special, says Mr. Howell. Doesn't look so special on me. Doesn't look so special to me, says Gilligan. Not the looks, the nostrils. We smell money for 10 miles, he says. Ginger and Marianne are making different noses, so you'll have something to choose from. Ginger knows all the movie stars, says Skipper. Mr. Howell, why don't you help instead of just standing there? All right, said Mr. Howell. Oh, this is squishy. And they start applying the clay to Gilligan. I wonder if this is anything like mud pies. And Skipper says, you never made mud pies when you were a kid? And he says, no, my mother had the butler do it for me. And Skipper said, well, you sure missed a lot when you were young. Ha ha. And Mr. Howell said, oh, it has its advantage. He took my spankings too. I wonder if Michelangelo got started this way. So now we have, it looks like the clay mixture is dry on Gilligan. And he starts feeling it, and it's definitely solid. And Gilligan says, Skipper was right. It did dry fast. I better go tell them it's ready to come off. So now we have Gilligan stumbling around with the clay on his head. And the girls here, we've got to get enough clay for a dozen noses, they say. Unless we try for Jimmy Durante. He's an actor, a comedian from the old days with a big nose, you guys. And there's Marianne, and when she sees at the distance there, something's wrong. And she sees Gilligan coming out from the forest, and Ginger says, what is it? And there we are. And Gilligan says, have you seen the skipper? And then, not realizing who he is, scream and run away. And Gilligan is confused. So here we have them in the forest. Oh, it's still after us. And they're screaming. And here we have Mrs. Howell in her hut. And Gilligan goes in there. And unfortunately, Mrs. Howell sees it as well. And it scares her. And get away from me, you thing. And get away from me, of course. And she runs out, and Gilligan says, what's the matter with her? And then Gilligan walks over to the mirror and then realizes, And he gets scared and also runs out. What's the matter with you running around, says the skipper, frightening women the way you've been doing? I'm sorry, skipper, but I couldn't find myself, he said. Well, Mr. Howell, if you'll help me, I think it's dry enough to remove. Skipper, would you like to make a statue of me like this? Not just the head, but the whole big, adorable me. Why, certainly, Mr. Howell. My gosh, I forgot to put a divider in this. And Mr. Howell says, divider? And Skipper, yes, a piece of cardboard and separate it into two parts and take it off. And Gilligan says, you can't get me out of here? He said, now take it easy now, little buddy. Take it easy. It'll save your time combing your hair in the morning, says Mr. Howell. So there we are with a pick and a mallet. Let me out of here, says Gilligan. Gilligan, just a moment. And they start chiseling at it. Gilligan, are you all right? He said, yes, but make sure you stop when you get to the real meat.
Well, he said me.
Right, he said me, those horrible texts. Of course, little buddy, says the skipper. So now we cut and we see the face mask of Gilligan. And your noses, sir. And we get our tray there with all the different celebrity noses. And I'm sure these are a bunch of names that most of you guys don't even recognize. I'm sure you recognize John Wayne, but I don't know about the others. So here he is trying Richard Burton's nose. And we cut to a later scene. And now we have, it looks like the professor getting ready for surgery. And it looks like all the castaways are going to be helping. Ginger says, reminds me of a part I played as a nurse. And he says, maybe the same will happen to me. Everyone ready? Yes. And Gilligan says, no, now realizing, of course, that surgery's involved. Look, maybe if I bared you like Dr. This is a joke that, by the way, I'm sure none of you guys are going to remember. But in the early 1960s, there used to be a popular show on television called Dr. Ben Casey. It was a weekly show about a doctor. And he wore the type of shirt that was like double-breasted, and he would always open the flap, similar to what Captain Kirk did in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. So that's why when you see this joke here where it says, look, maybe if I bared you like Dr. Ben Casey, huh? And then Gilligan reaches up and then opens up the flap on the professor's shirt. Like that. Mr. Howell, well, if he's going to look like Dr. Casey, I'm going to look like Dr. Zorba, he says. Of course, we're mentioning a bunch of names that none of you guys even know. And Zorba would be Zorba the Greek. Mrs. Howell, you be the head nurse. Ginger, Marianne, you assist Mrs. Howell. And look at that book, Medicine Made Easy. I don't know if I would trust that. You got the medical book, Skipper. Yes. Go ahead, you're
all right. And we'll start here because there's a lot of comments.
Oh yeah, let's get caught up.
Everybody else.
Thank you.
Herc says Jimmy Dutanti.
Jimmy Durante.
Hachi Chi Chi Cha. Papa Grills. I remember watching this as a kid. This episode's so funny.
Yes, it is. James Garner, Rockford Files. Yes, you're right, Chris. Well, Chris, that makes two of us. Chris recognized all those names too. Wonderful, Chris.
Then there's a couple more.
Go ahead.
I like the Rockford Files.
It was a good show.
No surgery is brutal. The nose knows.
Yeah, but I guess now it's a common thing. People are always getting new noses.
Lemon, I miss all the old TVs. It was cool.
Yeah, back in the good
old days. For cheese lovers, there's the Roquette Files.
The Roquefort Files.
Ben Casey plus Ben Scissors inspired my young people to become doctors.
Oh, there's somebody who knows him. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Herc. Okay, so I guess we're caught up. So here, you got the medical book, Skipper. You hold it up while I read the instructions. So whatever you do, don't skip 2 pages, or this boy will be minus his appendix. And Gilligan hears that and stands up, and they have to push him back down. Or you just breathe deep, Gilligan, like this. Take a nice deep breath with this, and oh my goodness, Mr. Howell starts to get lightheaded. Thurston's always been very squeamish, says Mr. Howell. I remember when he passed out when I had my ears pierced. You better attend to him, yeah. So there go the Howells. You better attend to him, and we can take this all over tomorrow. Now, Skipper, will you administer the anesthetic, please? So they put a piece of cloth over Gilligan's mouth, and they start squeezing a sponge to slowly drop the drops onto his mask, and they tell him to count backwards from 100. And of course, that makes him very drowsy. And the professor is asking for the scalpel, and they hand him a really large knife. Definitely not a scalpel. And he asks for a sponge, and it's a huge sponge. And he says, "My book, the book." Medicine made easy. And muttering distinctly as Gilligan starts passing out. Now he wakes up with a bandage on his nose. And he's happy. "Hey, Skipper, what time is it?" "It's a minute and a half later than the last time you asked me," said the skipper. Of course, with that same look. "At 10 o'clock today, that'll be 5 days," says Gilligan. "And the professor will take the bandage off." "Uh-huh." "Maybe he'll give you an hour for good behavior," says the professor. Skipper's tired of Gilligan asking him what time it is, so he says, "Maybe he'll give you an hour off with good behavior." And Gilligan says, "Yes." So they rush to the professor, and now we have the professor removing the bandage. "I can hardly wait. Just hold still a minute." "Hurry, hurry, hurry," said Gilligan. "Beautiful, marvelous," they say. "Perfect. Let me see," says Gilligan, and they hand him a mirror. And he says, "It's my old nose." And the professor says, "I tried to tell you it wasn't broken. Wait until the swell." He said, "All they did is put the bandage on you to wait until the swelling reduced. You were too upset to wait." "While you slept, the professor put a bandage on?" "Oh, you sound disappointed." "Well, naturally, I was expecting to look like Richard Burton," is what he said. "And that got me." And we cut to a later scene with them playing golf. And we have the skipper and Mr. Howell and Gilligan. "Your driver, Mr. Howell," says Gilligan. "All right, Captain, here you go." And it looks like Mr. Howell is teaching Skipper how to play golf. And there's a swing. "Oh, not bad, not bad at all. Let's see you try, Skipper." "Watch this." So the skipper, all excited, gets ready. "Your ball, Skipper. Thanks so much, Gilligan." And Gilligan steps back. "Load of warning here, huh?" And Skipper hits the ball, or he thinks that he does. "Where did it go? Where did it go?" "It's right there, Skipper." And it's still on the ground. "Maybe you need a bigger ball." "Well, thanks, Gilligan." "No, Skipper, please, let me give you the lesson," says Mr. Howell. "I know you're a big fellow. Just swing. Remember, it's with the wrist and the arm." Away we go. This time, way back, big back swing. And Skipper swings back, and they hear, "Oh!" Of course. "Oh no, right in the nose," says Gilligan. And they look, and oh no, it's sorry, Professor. "Mr. Howell was teaching me a proper backswing," says Skipper. "I just came over to join the game," says the professor.
Yeah.
And he shows his nose, and coincidentally, it happens to look just like Gilligan's did.
Yeah. Well, Skipper's issue was he wasn't watching the ball.
Well, you can if you're swinging the thing behind you, right?
No, when you as soon as you let your eyes off the ball, your club automatically lifts up a tiny bit from like instinctual, like it's almost like a natural thing. Like when you swing back and you take your eye off the ball, then you prop up a little bit higher, then your throws your whole swing off.
Okay, so to not do that, you must keep your eye on the ball the whole time?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's another reason why I wasn't very good when I tried to play. In fact, I think about it. I think the ball was the last thing I was looking at.
Yeah, yeah. Keep the eye on the ball.
Like the old saying goes, keep your eye on the ball.
Yeah.
And Gilligan says, Professor, don't you worry. I know just what to do. Dr. Gilligan to surgery, Dr. Gilligan to surgery. And Gilligan runs off all excited to get
Yeah.
ready.
No, I would have made one slight change to the scene here, but they wouldn't have done it on this in the '60s. There, when
What's
Gilligan
that?
touches those and goes and asks if that hurts, I would have had the professor punch him. And go, you tell me.
And that's funny. If I was, by looking at that nose, I would say it does look like Jimmy Durante, the guy with the big nose they were talking about. Out of all those movie stars, that looks like a Jimmy Durante nose. And here we have our closing credits.
Okay.
And here's our
Now let's
tale about castaways.
yeah, and we can get caught up on the chats now.
Yes, please. Thank you. Thank you for your patience, everyone. Okay, where are we? So Ben Casey was the last one. Let me see. Herc 130 says, oh, yes, Chris knows a thing or two about noses. Chris says, lemon, so good. And Chris Longbill says, Herc, I didn't even have outside rebuilt. All was on the inside of my nose. Thanks for remembering. So kind. Cheers, friends. Just got home, says Skogly. Says, hello, Skogly. Hello, hello. I'm glad you could join us. Oh, by the way, reminder, everybody, there is a poll in the chat. If you get a chance, please vote on your favorite episode tonight. Lemon Pie says, hey, you Skogly. And Herc says, Skogly. Chris says, Skogly, hi. I hope the new vehicle is wonderful. Oh, wow. Congratulations. You got a new car there, Skogly. Got some new wheels, huh? Lemon Pie says, in the Roquefort Files, he investigated cheese heists. And Chris Longbill says, does anyone else notice Mr. Howells in perfectly pressed linen pants? Oh, he always is. Mr. and Mrs. Howell are always in perfectly. Oh, and they do show how they iron their clothes here. They have shown in previous episodes that Gilligan uses a skillet with hot rocks in it. Herc 130, cheese got stolen. That's no good, huh? Chris says, lemon's on fire tonight. And Lemon Pie says, yes, and cheese factory sabotage. Debris everywhere. And Herc 130 says, Lemon Pie. Chris, do you have any idea what it takes to get that perfect crease down linen pants? I'm guessing a lot of starch or something similar like that. Chris Longfellow says the cheese stands alone. Yes, it does. So, okay, Gorilla, which episode did you like best?
This one.
I would have to agree. I like this one better too. I thought they were both okay, but this one between the two seemed to be more superior. Skogly says it's glorious. It's really nice having all the doodads and switches in the dashboard and whatnot work properly. That's right. You got to have the doodads and whatnots. Okay. So I'm going to close the poll in the chat if it hasn't closed itself already. And no, it hasn't. I've been lucky lately. Okay, so I'm going to end the poll. And let me share the result of that with everyone. Okay, now we want the poll. I got a bit of a lag, but there we go. There we go. Here's our poll. Which episode did you enjoy the most? And it looks like My Fair Gilligan got 42%. A Nose by Any Other Name got 42%. Both equally 14%. And neither one 0%. So that's pretty close right there, neck and neck. Very cool. Thank you, everybody, for voting. I really appreciate that. Yeah, really nice. And we got through this kind of quick, right, Gorilla? Less than 2 hours. So, first things first. I want to thank everybody who came tonight. I know Chris was here really early, and I know Bill was here, Mad Scientist was here, the wonderful, fantastic, supremely intelligent LDG of Free the Net is here. Bill is here. Lemon Pie is here. Oh, by the way, if you guys have wrenches, please feel free to put them in the chat. And Lemon Pie, there we are. And we have the wonderful Captain Infinity. There's Mad Scientist again. Edge of Time and Bill. By the way, I may repeat names. Please forgive me. I just want to make sure I cover everybody.
Chris Walkville says that poll goes to prove that we're all pretty much on the same page. It's cute.
Oh yeah, I know it's great. I like that, but of course, I like all the polls. Sometimes they're surprising. Sometimes they're a little more predictable, but they're always fun. Oiler Greg, so glad you could make it. Also, Herc 130, and we have the wonderful Matt G here as well. And yep, there is Lemon Pie again, Herc and Chris. And I know Scogly just came in. I'm sorry, Scogly, you came in towards the end. And a reminder, everybody, please vote in the poll in my community tab for what horror movie you want next week. And if you have any suggestions on horror movies you would like to see in the future, leave comments on that community tab of what you might want to see, and we'll add those to the list. And I think we got everybody. You can see Chris, Herc, Scogly, Captain, Finity, LDG, Nemesis of Eden. There we are. Good to see you, Nemesis of Eden. Hail, Pop and Gorilla. Hope you're doing awesome. We are, sir. Nemesis, I'm sorry that we're getting ready to close the stream. It kind of started late, so I was telling everybody I was going to try to get through a little quicker tonight because I know it's late. And Herc says, hey, Nemesis of Eden. Lemon Pie says, well, yes, meant new for you. I buy used cars only. Lemon Pie, that is the only way to do it. And the smartest way to do it. Never buy a car new. Always buy used. Lemon Pie says, sweet. Nemesis of Eden says, hey, at Herc 130. Yeah, never buy a car new because as soon as you drive it off the lot, it immediately drops in value and you lose that money off the value of it. So if you're going to buy a used car, you want to get one with as few owners as possible. Like maybe like you're the second owner, third owner, something like that. It's always a good idea. And Gorilla, what say you about your channel? Why don't you tell us what you got?
Well, next week we'll be starting Time Cop. There we just finished up Stranger Things.
Is Time Cop a movie or a TV series?
Both. But we're not doing the movie. We're doing the TV series. It's 9 episodes.
Okay. Gotcha.
And then on Friday, we are reviewing the Walton's episode, The Minstrel. Saturday is Babylon 5 Watch Party. Sunday is Matrix 3. Then I'm going to try to get some more shorts out.
Very cool. And I definitely recommend everybody check out Gorilla's channel. Here, let me drop a link really quick if I can, if it works. And please do check out Gorilla's channel. He's got a lot of entertaining stuff. He does watch parties, and he posts a lot of shorts, which are quite hilarious. I need to do that too eventually. I need to get caught up. I'm jealous. And remember, everybody, we're going to be back next Wednesday for Gilligan's Island Season 2. So I'm excited about that. It's going to be in color, and it's actually going to have the Professor and Marianne covered in the beginning credits. And on my channel, remember that on Mondays, we used to cover Star Trek, the animated series, but we already covered all 22 episodes, and that is now in our past. So starting this Monday coming up, we're going to start reviewing the 1965 series Lost in Space. So please, if you like Lost in Space, or if you have never seen it, please try to watch the first episode, The Reluctant Stowaway. Maybe join us on Monday for that. It'll be Monday at 6 p.m. Pacific time. I think you'll love it. If you haven't seen it, you really need to give it a try. It's much better than all the modern stuff. And if you haven't seen it in a long time, now's a good time to get caught up and see it again. Everybody's welcome. So if you want to come and talk in the chat or be on the panel, you're definitely invited. And of course, Tuesday, you'll find me on Antiderivative Jill's channel, where we're going to do Star Trek, the TOS. So I'm excited about that. And then next Tuesday night will be whatever horror movie you guys decide to vote on. So I have 4 movies to choose from. Like I said, in my community tab, please, when you get a chance, take the time to vote which one you want to see. And then we will see you next Tuesday night at 6 p.m. Pacific time for that. Also, I have random streams called Rumblings from the Lab with the open topic, open mic. And I haven't had one in about a month or so. I need to get caught up on that. So I think I'm going to try to have one of those this weekend. But with that, I want to thank everybody. Thank you so much. You guys make everything worthwhile, and that's the reason why I'm here. Because without the chat, we wouldn't have anything. I wouldn't have a stream, and especially without a co-host, a wonderful co-host like Gorilla, who makes it so just such an enjoyable experience. And Gorilla, and I want to mention too, is Gorilla is a fantastic host, as you guys can always tell. And Gorilla, I think you'll like Lost in Space. I hope you get a chance to finish watching that first episode.
I'm not sure if I'll be able to be there this Monday, though, for the first one, but I'll let you know.
Okay, sounds good. I understand, but at least even if you can't make it there, if you get a chance, try to watch the episode on your own time when you can. And Chris says it sounds fun, Pop. Yes, it does. I'm excited. I just bought a book. It's a big, thick, big book. It's much bigger than I thought, and it's called Lost in Space: The Authorized Biography of a Classic Sci-Fi Series, written by Mark Cushman, forward by Bill Mooney. So I've got that, and it's a heavy one too, and it covers the entire first season in extreme detail. So I'll be able to back up as I usually try to do, with a little bit of background info and technical details and things like that. And thank you, everybody. Thank you. And on the rerun, if you enjoyed this, please consider hitting the subscribe button, maybe the like, and hit the alert buttons, and share this with your friends. Let everybody know. If you know anybody out there who are fans of Star Trek, Gilligan's Island, horror movies, or anything pop culture related like that, please share out my channel. And I will see you all soon. I apologize for keeping it abrupt and short, but like I said, I know it's late for everybody, so I'm doing this to respect your time. So I will talk to everybody soon. Vote in the poll. Let me know what horror movie you want to cover next week. And I will be doing a rumblings from the live stream here in the next few days. You're welcome to join me if you get the alerts. So please click those alerts. Until then, have a wonderful night, everybody, and please take care and peace.